since I give a presentation or give a workshop in general. Yeah, so this is an alternative to summer internship, again hosted by me and Tech Together. Just a little bit more about me. I am currently a software engineer at Audible. My main project is to work on aggregating data and providing the pay sections for all of the Audible app and also the audible.com website. I also interview for some of the software engineering roles, especially back end at Audible. And currently, I'm mentoring an intern this summer. Previously, I was a Boston University. I'm still a Boston University graduate. I majored in computer science and math, and I didn't really have any internship dealing with math and computer science. And I think that's why we're here today, or I'm here today giving the workshop. Outside of that, I was also the Tech Together Boston director and currently an advisor for Tech Together, as Fiona mentioned. All right, hope that give me some credibility about talking about alternative to summer internship. So I guess just a little bit more background. Before I started full-time job searching in the fall of 2019, I actually did not have any software engineering internship experience at all. I had an internship during my freshman year for um, associate product management, which I didn't really like. And for the summer of 2019, right before I started job searching, my offer got rescinded because of some paperwork issue, and I ended up just having a summer for myself. One other thing to note is if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we can circle back after the workshop is over. All right, not a quick overview of the workshop. Divided in three sections. It's already summer somewhere. It is somewhere in New York City where I'm at. What should I do now? Second, we'll talk about some summer internship alternatives, and third, we'll do a deeper dive into these options. All right. So it's summer. It's June 9th. It's summer somewhere. I'm panicking. I don't have anything to do. What should I do now? First off, relax. Take some time off. There's a reason why students have summer break. It's not to do work. It's actually to take some time off your school, college life. It is super stressful being a college student or a high schooler or being a student in general. So remember to take some time off for yourself before you plan any busy work during your summer. And with that being said, let's talk about the alternatives that we have planned for you. The first thing, as everyone, if you don't already know, there's a lot of online coursework available for you to take over the summer. And as someone who already who was an interviewee during the time that I full-time job search, and now an interviewer, we really don't care what you do during your time off. The only thing we pay attention is what you get out of it. So maybe take some online coursework. There's a ton of websites out there now. MIT OpenCourseWare, Coursera, Udemy, LinkedIn Learnings. A lot of them are free. If you want to learn something, there's resources available. And most of the time, it's going to be free for students. I know if you're interested in UX, I know Figma is free for students as well. It is a tool that is available for UX designer. If you're interested in software engineering, Code Academy is free. You can do HackerRank for some of the algorithm questions, LeetCode if you plan to study a little bit more for your job, software engineering job. Or if you want to learn a language, Duolingo is free. There's a lot of free options out there. And I think as a student, you should utilize most of them. You can also get some certificate like HubSpot CRM certificate. If you're interested in some customer facing roles, not necessarily software engineering, having a certificate in HubSpot is very helpful. LinkedIn now also give out certificates for a lot of classes that they offer. I also believe that Coursera and Udemy allow you to do that. Once you get a certificate, you can put it on your LinkedIn and your resume as well. And that's a really good way for you to polish your resume without having to do an actual internship. The second thing is to work at a local small businesses. And this is me acknowledging that we are in a very privileged situation. um, being able to decide what to do this summer, but not everyone had the ability to not like get any income for a 3-month period. And working at a local small business is a really good way for you to do that. Or it's allow you to earn some extra cash. And most of the time, they're very flexibility with your schedule, so you can squeeze in some other extra work that you can do as well. And as I mentioned, as a hiring manager, as an interviewer, we really don't care what you do and if it's some sort of menial work. Companies value the soft skills, the leadership or communication skills that you develop through all of the experiences that you had during college. And why not try working for a small coffee shop and meet some new people in your local community? Third, join a nonprofit organization, and this is what I actually did during the summer that I have off. I organized Tech Together Boston, be a director, and managed people from Vietnam, actually my hometown. It was actually a really fun way for me to still stay involved with my friends in the States while have some like travel time out for me in Vietnam. Like I organize at night where it's actually morning or afternoon time in the States. And then in the morning, I just like hang out with friends, do some sort of small project. I tried to learn French a little bit during that summer, but that didn't really work out. But my biggest projects during that summer of 2019 was organizing Tech Together Boston. And still to this day, I still keep in touch with a lot of my Tech Together Boston friends and a lot of Tech Together friends as well. And I think like that's definitely like a good way for me to spend my summer, and I didn't really feel guilty not doing an actual internship. And joining a nonprofit allow you to support the cause that you care about. Again, it's a way for you to learn new skills and build your resume. A lot of nonprofits actually have the work that you need. Like, sorry, um, most of them don't have the ability to build website. They just don't have the capacity to do that. Most of them also lack people just to go out and do outreach. And at the end of the day, if you decide to join a nonprofit, there's always something that you can do that you will be passionate about. And nonprofit experience is actually also a work experience. For example, I put my work for Tech Together Boston on my resume as an actual work experience instead of some sort of extracurricular activities. You can do that, but why not build a little bit more on your experience and show employers that you actually are doing something important over your summer. Um, we also include a small blurb to reach out to nonprofits, and they love to see people interested. But this is just a quick intro that you can reach out to someone on LinkedIn, for example, or like your local community or anyone's email that you find online. So hello, Fiona. My name is Lisa, and I'm a freshman at BU studying advertising. I'm interested in learning more about the nonprofit space, and I was wondering if you had any volunteer opportunities at Tech Together. I had my Tech Together missions and grow this past year, and I would love to be a part of the organization. And we and as a small blog for Tech Together, we also have a lot of volunteer opportunities throughout the year that you can always find on our Tech Together website. And the last thing that I want to talk about is side projects. And I think this is the route that most students who are interested in technical roles decide to take, is to do some sort of side projects during the summer. It doesn't have to be like a full-fledged project, though you can do that. And you can also do side project with your schools, with your classmates as well. If you reach out to the student Slack channels, there's always someone who's trying to find people to do projects, but like a hackathon space where there's always someone who's thinking, oh, I have an idea, but I don't know how to execute it. There's always the other person who think that they have the skills but don't know what to work on. So find a project that you care about, and reach out to your friends in your circle or your student Slack channel. And there's also tons of technical groups on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Slack that are available to students. to students that you can find someone to work with. And if you don't find something to work on, building a personal website is great. I would love to actually have time to build a personal website now that I have a little more technical skills after working full time. Um, or if you want something a little more low commitment, MOH and Tech Together also hosts hackathons over the summer, and it's usually just a weekend long. And that also allows you to build a website from start to finish, from ideation to actually have something demo presentable, and add it to your GitHub or the personal website that you were supposed to build. Technical recruiters tell us all the time that they always look at the projects you're creating outside of school. And as someone who always look at people's resume for a living, we do that as well. Like as software engineer interviewer, if we don't see any project, any actual concrete work experience, like a nonprofit work or an actual internship, we do go to your website and look at your projects and see how you plan it, how you build it, and rate you on that even before you come to the interview. So make sure that if you do any projects, push it on your GitHub. Like it's better to have something than nothing. All right. So let's dig a little more into this. I want to give some tips for building these side projects. It's pretty simple, and usually this applies to everything, not including just side projects, but anything that you're doing over the summer or during your free time. You should ideate it, have some idea, kind of plan it out, do the execution, which is most of your summer, and last, write documentation on what you did, and so that you can have something to show and talk about. So let's ideate or let's plan a project together. I have an idea that I should find friends who read the same books as me. So for example, if I read 1934 during the pandemic, I want to find someone who kind of did the same thing and see if they have any other recommendations for my book. And when you ideate, you should think that what is your project for? Well, this is just for me. There's not much that do you think I don't see any other use outside of it, but I think this is a really good way for me to learn a little bit of front end, a little bit of back end, writing some sort of recommendation algorithm and deliver it so that my friends can play around with it. How should you implement it? I kind of touched base on it. Writing some sort of algorithms, also potentially having a database and a website that people can interact with. And when you ideate, you also should set a timeline for yourself. The summer is 3 months long most of the time, but if you don't really truly plan it, your summer actually just flow by. So if you set a timeline for yourself, it's easier to stick to it, and it also allows you to bring your project to completion. And at the end of the day, like you should determine what the goals are for your project. If you just do it just because, it's also fine, so long as you have something to talk about after you finish it. Because that's what we kind of try to do with this whole workshop, is finding something that you can talk about potentially in your future work and tie it to whatever you plan to do after graduation. After you ideate, you will execute and implement it. This is just a small timeline that I have for myself. So I think that for my book recommendation, I will just get someone history from Goodreads. Goodreads has some external API that developer can use. After I get me and my friends reading and listen history. The reason why I said listen history here is because I work at Audible and we use listen history and reading history interchangeably. Just because we are an audiobook company, shameless plug. In order to make, and then making an API call to Goodreads will take about a week for me to get some sort of key from them and actually start like doing the code. Along with that, I just set up some database for me to store this information somewhere, along with my friend's recommendation. And the biggest part is writing algorithm to make to match me along with some friends that already also read the same book as me. Um, Recommendation algorithm is a very big thing right now because everyone wants personalized products. Everyone wants to have a personalized experience when you're on the web. So I think this is a really good way for me to get a little more exposure to something that I haven't done before. Reading a little more on research paper or more Medium articles about recommendation algorithms. Um, Probably at the end of the day, the algorithm that I write will not be that complicated just because it's a one person project. But I will use this opportunities to read a little more about what is the industry standard for this kind of work. And lastly, just kind of quickly write up some website, design it if I have the capacity. If not, then I'll just try like do a small form so that my friend can just like sign in, allow me to read the Goodreads history, and then I'll put the matching. And also, if you see here, we have around an 8-week timeline, but because summer is 12 to 13 week, that's allow you to give some buffer time for your project. If you want to do a little bit more, or just a lot more free time for you to enjoy your summer. And one last thing that is, I think, very important for side projects and a lot of people don't do is documentation. Even if it's just a README on GitHub, you should always write documentation for your technical project. In as with my role as a software engineer, I write a lot of documentation because our work is being used by marketing, other clients like Android and iOS, audible.com, and also like people who are working on the same team as well. So get yourself into a habit of writing documentation will be very helpful down the line. And during this, like when you write this documentation for your project, think about what you learned, what else you can do with your project, and other things you can do better. This is very similar to how people do hackathon projects, but a little on a longer timeline. And trust me, writing documentation will actually get you a long way, especially when recruiters go into your GitHub, look at your projects, and most of them don't understand the technical implementation. So writing a quick blurb for it will allow them to have a better overview of what you did without having to rely on a technical person to look at the project. Yeah, and also if you're still looking at for employment opportunities this summer, we actually partner with a lot of organizations outside of Tech Together to provide you with additional employment pathway. For example, the MOH Fellowship, the applications are still open. It is a remote internship that has open source software engineer products and engineering check. And you can always reach out to an MOH fellow there are a lot of them on LinkedIn to get more information. But the MOH Fellowship allow you to spend 12 weeks to build your skills, and most of the projects are fully fleshed out. So you actually have some real world experience working on an actual real world project. Flick, if you're interested in founding a business or founding a nonprofit, we also have partnership with Flick, and Flick is a space where founders can connect to Verify and get other women to volunteer for your nonprofit. Right now, there's a lot of free opportunities for apprenticeships on Flick. If you go to their website, and again, it's a good way for you to build your resume with experienced female founders. We actually have some Flick apprentice working for Tech Together right now.
And I'll just add to that since I was the one that added that slide for you.
Yeah.
I know you're winging it. Flick is one of Tech Together's community partners. And the way that it works is you create a profile with your resume and your interests. And there are female founders that you can request to work with. And you can basically you do 3-month stint apprenticeship. So for example, Tech Together has worked with 2 apprentices so far through Flick, and that's how I've found them. And I've worked with them on 3-month projects. So one of them we did a research project, and another one we did a data analytics project. So if you are identify, I think they are specifically women. If you identify as a woman, then you can sign up for this platform, and it's a really, really great way for people who don't have experience on their resume to really quickly build up your experience and also get connections with people that are in the field without having like that huge barrier of like competitive internships. So it's a really good just opportunity to open the door for you. That's it.
Good plug, Fiona. And lastly, boot camps. We also partner with a lot of boot camps as our community partner, like Europe Hack Diversity, Resilient Coders. So bootcamp is again a little more structured than your normal side project, online internship, online coursework experience. Bootcamps allow you to like they actually give you classes and course like you are in a normal college setting. And if you want to learn a skill quickly, bootcamp is a good option for you if you prefer structured learning experience. Yeah, so we have Europe in Seattle and Hack Diversity in Boston, also Resilient Coders. If you're interested in doing a bootcamp, like feel free to reach out to us and we can direct you to the right people. And at, and last but not least, like try to have fun during the summer. You don't really have a lot of free time like when you work a full-time job. At least like a good chunk of just free time, like not having any responsibility, not having um, anything to think about, like income, like adulting stuff. Summer is just an opportunity for you to have fun. And one thing that I regret not doing during my first few summer, like not having a job, is picking up some new skills and hobbies. I feel like as a young adult, like I don't really have a hobby that I can talk around with other people because most of the time what I did was just things related to my work and relating to my like future job prospect. So that's something that I wish I did a little more when I was a college student and just network with the people in your circles or your friend circle. A lot of you go back to your home. So maybe try to hang out with your friends a little more because when you're an adult, when you graduate, there's just not a lot of opportunities for you to reconnect. And that's something that I really miss about being a college student. Yeah, and that's it. I know that we have an hour allocated for the workshop, but this is the end of my presentations. Um, Now, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat. I'm not sure if we are missing anything.
I have a
Yeah.
question from Danae. Danae asks, you mentioned that doing a project that you can talk about, mentioned doing a project that you can talk about in the future and hopefully ties up to your future work. But do you have any tips for what to do if you're not sure what you would like to do after graduation?
Yeah, so one thing that I noticed as a new grad is that most of the skills that you learn during your college experience, or at least the hard skill, at least the hard skills, aren't really applicable to your current job. Just because like each role will have a different requirements regarding hard skills. For example, software engineering, you like have to know a specific coding language or a specific framework. Or product manager, like you're expected to use tool like some different ways. So long as you can gain some soft skills from your work and also allow yourself the opportunity to learn because I think learning how to learn is very important and doing that through all of these pathway. Like you can do that through any of these pathway. Hope that answered your question. I know that it's a little like too broad, but at the end of the day, like any experience can be relevant if you know how to apply it.
Yeah, and to add to that, all the Tech Together organizers I talk to about their interviewing experience, they always say that their Tech Together leadership experience was the most useful thing that they referenced in their interviews, even though they're interviewing for like Accenture roles or Verizon roles or roles at IBM. It's not like they're organizing a hackathon in those positions, but they're able to reference their experiences as a leader, as managing their teams, as putting together the hackathon, figuring out the challenges that come along that, and relate it to the similar challenges that they might experience in the role that they're trying to get. So I think what you said, Lisa, was very accurate.
Yeah, and I guess like to like a little more shameless plug to that. I talked about Tech Together Boston organizing experience in all of my full-time interviews, and I got some offers out of that as well. Because one thing that managers really care about is how you're gonna fit into the team and how you're gonna fit into the company. And culture fit is such a hard term to determine, but the skills that you learn like throughout all of your experience kind of allow you to gauge like how you would fit into one company. And I think that is also very important, like to learn throughout your time in college as well, like how, like what type of people do you get well with, like work along well, what type of people do you avoid like talking to or avoid working with.
And we have a few more questions. So I'm just going to go in order and we'll get to all of these. Gabrielle asked, I'm interested, or Gabby, sorry. I'm interested in learning more about, or I'm interested in learning more about AI or building her experience utilizing AI or machine learning. Any advice?
Yeah, so I actually looked at a little bit into it myself. I would recommend Kaggle to get started. Kaggle has a lot of data sets that you can just play around with. Because something that a lot of AI engineers tell me is that machine learning is just glorify like if else statement, and that's just from them. Like that's not me. But once you but one thing that is really important to learn is how to consume your data in the most accurate way, how to integrate your data into an existing system, and how to clean up your data, like in case that there's a lot of noise you get from like external environments. For example, at Audible, we have a lot of data just purely from testing. We test a lot and a ton. So with Kaggle have all of these data sets for you to play around with. If you don't know Python already, I would recommend starting, or if you don't have any language to start, I would recommend Python, just because it is pretty much the industry standard, and a lot of people like learn Python with data science and machine learning. Once you know how to use data and work with data, venture out a little more onto learning how to use a database, like using Mongo, SQL, how to integrate your data into like an actual back end. So that's why, like, kind of go back to the project that I talked about. An example for integrating data with the website is how are you surfacing like this history onto the website, like for the user to see. So, and that's something that I think you can learn like with the tools available now in the internet. But Kaggle is definitely a good way to start. DataCamp is also a place that I recommend people going to if you really want to just get started with like the functions and like the simplest math, like data manipulation. Yeah, free code cam as well, but that is a little more on like the software engineering side.
And always to add to that, to keep pushing hackathons, if you want to get like a project-based machine learning experience, go to a more established collegiate, or it doesn't have to be collegiate, but a more established hackathon, like a Tech Together hackathon or Technica, or any of the larger ones, and you'll definitely be able to find a team that's doing stuff with AI. And you can just say, hey, I'm looking for a team that's doing stuff with machine learning. Either you could contribute to the team, or you could just shadow them to see the process of what it's like to build a project using AI from start to finish. A lot of people think that at hackathons you actually have to build a project. You could just find a team and hang out for them with the weekend and see how they build their projects and learn by watching. So that's fully an option as well. And someone asked, do you need to have code experience to build your own website?
And the answer is no, but you can learn. So if you really don't want to learn how to code, again, Squarespace, Wix, there's a lot of templates available for you to build your own website. I know Adobe also have their own portfolio tool if you're on like the design, more on the UI designer route. If you want to learn a little more about like how to build a website, even if it's just static, most of the website, informational website out there are just HTML, CSS. And there are a lot of available templates out there. If you just search a website template or personal website template, you can actually just download something and make changes yourself without having to know how to code. Because like even in the real world right now, most websites are not being coded from scratch. There's already some template and some frameworks available out there that you can just use. And most people who use these tools don't really have a lot of experience coding either. So you can just Google some templates and try it yourself. But if you really don't want to touch code, Squarespace looks good. WordPress looks really good. Wix also looks really good, and it really seem easy to use. And there's also options that can be cheap and also like free for students as well. You know, any plug for that because you don't like coding?
What do you mean?
You do like coding.
I like web development, but anything after that, it's not that I don't like it, it's just that you don't want me to do it because I'm not as good as you. I will break.
Yeah, so she outsource it to me.
If the Tech Together website is broken, it's likely because I tried to do something fancy with it, which has not stopped me from trying. So
which is a good thing. You always should try touching things that you're not familiar with, because like trial and errors.
Yeah, I had a Wix. When I was in college, I started off with a Wix website, personal website, and then as I practiced my web development skills through primarily hackathons or through Tech Together, I felt more comfortable recently building my own personal website, and it was a lot easier. I used a Bootstrap template, and then I edited it from there. So as adjust it from there. So as Lisa said, like you never really need to start from scratch. You can always use a template and then, play around with the code and get it to look like how you want it to. And then Gianna asks, this was a great session. Thank you, Lisa. What are some tools or additional advice you may have for planning out a project to work on this summer and stay motivated and stick with it?
Talk about it with your friends. I think having someone else knowing about your project is a good way to keep you in check, because I'm not sure if you are like me. If I don't talk about it, I really don't have motivation to talk. Like I don't have the motivation to get stuff, like keep going. So maybe set up some like check-in points with your friends. They don't really need to, it doesn't need to be anything fancy. It can just be like someone asking, oh yeah, like how's that project of yours doing? And you're like, oh, actually I did nothing about it over the last 2 weeks, but I'll resume it. But let your friends know that you're working on something, just because they're also interested in seeing what you're doing as well. And at the end of the day, like you have to share it with someone like recruiter, managers. So might as well have some eyes on it before it actually get into the real world. And your friends will give you feedback that you can incorporate into your project. What are some tools? I'm not sure if you're talking about planning tools or like about like actual technical tools, but planning tools, the easiest thing is Jira. Well, not Jira, Trello. The easiest thing that you can use is Trello. It's just basically a giant stack of post-it notes that you can move around and like mark your progress. I know some people like Notion is getting very popular these days, and also Airtable. But those are the things that you can just keep track of your progress. More on the technical tool is really depends on what project that you decide to work on. Um, but yeah, I can talk more about that once I get more clarification on the type of project you want to work with.
And just want to make sure we're getting through all of these. Alexander asks, how would you network in a virtual environment when you don't really have anyone in your circle to help you as friends or professionally? That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, workshop like this, usually at the end of workshop like these, like this one, we drop our LinkedIn in the chat. So just say, oh yeah, like I joined this workshop together with you as well. You want to like reach out, like there's probably something in common that you share if you attend an online sessions like this. So that's always a good starting point for your conversation. Hackathons, we keep plugging hackathons, but hackathon is a really good way for you to network because like eventually you will have to work with someone that you don't really know about. And hackathons will give you that like instant exposure to the real world experience. Um, Also virtual meetup. I personally have not done this, but a lot of my friends, like during the pandemic, a lot of our friends, like we play like Among Us, for example, and usually like our friends just invite their friends over. Um, yes, and that's also a way for you to just kind of meet people in like your friend circle. Um, what else? Anyone have a good tips on this? I really don't have any that would be helpful.
I
'Cause
think
this,
what you said was what you started with. Go at hackathons, have a ton of mentors that are willing to help out. Workshops, always connect with workshop hosts and whoever's leading the workshop afterwards. Like the reason they're hosting the workshop is because they care about the community and they want to support whoever is attending. And then lastly, reach out to people on LinkedIn. Like you'd be surprised how accessible people are via the platform if you give a good intro. And Tech Together has some LinkedIn connection templates that you can utilize on our Medium. It's usually just start out and say, let's say you didn't meet Lisa through the workshop. You could have said, hey, Lisa, my name is Alexander. Let's say I am a freshman at or I am a current bootcamp student. I'm interested in becoming a software engineer, but I'm not really sure if my resume is like in the right place. Would you mind looking at it? Or another call to action would be, I want to learn more about software engineering because I'm not sure if it's a profession I want to go into. Would you be willing to set up a 15-minute call, or can I send you a list of my questions? You always want to one, be specific, introduce yourself of who you are. If you don't give an intro, no one's going to accept. Make sure that you're really clear with your ask and why you're asking that person. I have a lot of people that come to me and it's like, oh, well, can you tell me about STEM professions? I'm like, yes, I work in STEM, but my experience is really in the nonprofit space in marketing for tech companies. So I wish they would have taken a look at my LinkedIn before reaching out because I'm really not the best person that they need to be talking to. So definitely utilize LinkedIn. And if you don't have one already, I definitely recommend creating one. And if you're a high school student, I recommend this even more so because people have a soft spot for high schoolers and just for students in general. So like people want to give back because they see themselves in the younger generation and they want to see people like them or people who went to their university succeed.
yeah. Alumni net, you utilize your alumni network. They love to feel important. So
Yes.
once you reach out to them, it's already like an automatic win.
Yeah. And uh, someone asked, I'm more interested in back end stuff, less interested in web development. Is it still important in a programming career to learn web development stuff?
Um, so this is a very hard question to answer. I would say yes, but no. And let me explain. The reason why it's very important in programming and as a software engineer to know about web development is that that is basically how a lot of people, especially when you work for a customer facing product, that's how a lot of your customers interact with your business. So it's very important to learn like the tech, like if you're a software engineer, like you should know a little bit more about how like you are interacting with your customer. However, there are a lot of opportunities out there for you to do infrastructure and like pure back-end work without having to touch the front end at all. But at the end of the day, your backend will eventually get exposed to some sort of front end person, like via a website, via an app, or just like for example, if you run a like you run backend for a self-driving car, the front end is how you are driving, like how the person is using that car. So I would say you don't have to know a lot about it, but at least get yourself some knowledge so that you can talk about it with your peers. Um, yeah,
And
I think we missed a question
oh,
from
how do I
Krish.
form a team for organizing a hackathon? I'll answer that one.
Yeah.
Reach out to your friends, peers, make a website so people can learn more about it, have a sign up form, have like a clear vision of the hackathon, and happy to talk more about starting a hackathon one on one if you want to reach out to me via LinkedIn.
Kudos to you for being a high
Yes,
schooler and wanting to do
it's
all of this.
awesome.
Like I didn't do anything when I was in high school.
Neither did I. I just played soccer.
Yeah. Young
And
youth these
what
days.
should we include on our personal websites? Um, Shritha, maybe it'd be helpful. Are you into software engineering, or are you a high school or are you a college student? That might help us give more specific advice. But if you
Yeah.
are she's a high schooler, or they're a high schooler.
Wow.
I would just say like add your resume, add your links to your projects, a link to your GitHub and LinkedIn. Lisa, any advice?
Yeah, I mean, like the brand minimum is just yourself, like what
Yeah.
you're specifically looking for. I know outside of the states, a lot of people like to associate a resume with a photo of someone. So that might be a good way for you to kind of showcase, like just like put like a headshot of yourself along with like some basic information. Um, just because it looks a little nicer than just having a LinkedIn. Like having a website already show that you put some thought into the recruiting process. And then as you get more experience as a high schooler, you really don't have a lot of experience to show on your resume. Show on your website. So what you're working on or what you're planning to learn, or like as a college student, like once like eventually you will show you will include like the coursework that you're taking or the fields that you're interested in as well. But basically include whatever the information that you think another person, doesn't have to be a recruiter, want to know about you when they first meet you. So that just skip the small talk and go straight to the important like conversation.
And someone asked a really good question. Do projects have to be very unique? Can we follow online tutorials?
No, I mean projects at the end of the you like what you learn from doing a project is just how you implement it. I would say that it's extremely hard to build a unique project when you don't have any experience in the industry and don't have a lot of exposures to the field that you are trying to tackle. For example, I'm interested in like let's say advertising. I have no knowledge about advertising. There's probably someone who already know about advertising that think about a project idea even before I do. So you can definitely follow on online tutorials. And personal anecdote on this was that I did a Kaggle project for like to analyze some housing price in Boston and talked about it during an internship interview and got an offer during my freshman year. So that's something that you can do, and it's definitely proven to work based on my experience. Um, and yeah, like again, like at the end of the day, like you really just bring some the skills and the learning, like the learning progress that you made to your full-time job, like once you graduate. So projects don't have to be unique.
Yeah.
Just get started, and then it can like go whatever direction you want.
What do you think about reusing code though from tutorials for your project? Is that a
Um,
no or a go or no go?
I still think it's a go. From like an interviewer's perspective,
Yeah.
so long as you can talk about and like to be fair, like I don't even write unique code myself in the industry, so you don't give it like the code that you write. There's likely someone that optimized it, like already optimized it or thought of that approach already. And people on the internet also love to give give feedback. So if it's bad, like someone already like talk about it. So you can definitely reuse code. So long as you kind of understand what it does and how you can like re-implement it in the future.
Yeah. And Karen asked, I was wondering if you had any resources for learning web development. I'm interested in UX, UI, as well as web development and would love to make my own website.
Um, So I personally don't do a lot of web development myself. I know some web development, but I think Fiona can might have a better answer for this. But I would advise using some hackathon project starters. For example, MOH has a Flask React app starter. I can link after when Fiona start talking about her experience. Um, Recommend using some of the boilerplate code that is available on GitHub. There's a lot of boilerplate projects out there. And the first thing you can do is just kind of understand like how, like for example, the Python code React or how the React code like HTML. And then from there you can like learn a little more about adding functionality, like changing information. And the reason why like following some sort of boilerplate like this is very important is that in the industry we also don't recommend re-implementing a lot of stuff. If there's already a framework out there, we do prefer you to use it and learn how to use it rather than like re-implementing like a website from scratch, just pure HTML CSS or like just pure like vanilla, like no framework JavaScript.
Yeah, and to add to that, for me, my pathway into web development was you learn the fundamentals, HTML, CSS, which is the basis of all websites. And then once I learned the foundation of, what do these languages mean? How do they work in the most basic function? And then I taught myself how to use the frameworks because it's kind of like um, learning, like, I'm trying to think. I don't have a good analogy. I wish I did. But once you learn the framework, you'll know how to edit it. You'll know how the framework works because you'll know the foundation. So you'll easily be able to take advantage of existing templates that are out there and create whatever vision that you have for your personal website. So I would take note of these resources. Bootstrap is what I use for every single website. Tech Together was built off a Bootstrap template. All my hackathon projects are Bootstrap templates. And then also I would look at Jekyll. Jekyll is another really great resource. For hosting, you can host for free on GitHub pages. So that means that you have your code locally on your laptop, but you want to share it with the world. You want to make it live. that's where GitHub Pages comes into play. That's what hosting is. And then again, I think for UI UX, I can't emphasize, like, if you are in the design profession and you want to go that route, I don't necessarily think you don't necessarily need to build your own website. You could just focus more on the design aspects of it. So learn Figma, and instead, like, maybe share a link to your Figma prototype, instead of like spending time learning how to code and building your prototype. I've seen a lot of designers do that. So and also, there's a ton of intro to web development resources. Tech Together is going to be doing an intro to web dev workshop soon. So definitely keep an eye out for that one being hosted next month. But starting out with HTML, CSS, and then building your way up to the frameworks is a really good place to start. And so many. I want to make. We have 5 more minutes.
And I think we touched on Chris's question already. Where can I find online tutorials for projects? Free Code Camp, I think, is a really good place. Code Academy, let me send it to you. Is very good for learning like the basic of the language. It's not necessarily, it doesn't really go into like how the language is being used in the real world, but like the syntax, or just like how to write like the most simple like hello world, or like some basic math functions, or like write your own functions. Like that's a really good place to start. um yeah, I know a lot of people also recommend Harvard CS50 course for intro to computer science.